I grew up in a tiny town where opportunities were practically non-existent. Getting out of there took everything I had. I poured myself into my studies and worked like crazy, clinging to the hope of a better future. By some stroke of luck, or maybe sheer determination, I managed to get into a university in the capital. It felt like a dream come true. My goals were never extravagant. I just wanted a steady income, a loving wife, and kids someday. Well, 2 out of 3 didn't exactly pan out. I met my wife in the most unexpected way. It happened in the park while I was out jogging. She was perched on a bench, absorbed in a book, and honestly, I probably wouldn't have noticed her if not for my clumsy footwork. Yep, I twisted my ankle. Classic rom-com moment, right? Except, in reality, it hurt like hell. A serious sprain. I couldn't even hobble to my car. Lucy, as I later learned her name, was kind enough to help me up and call a taxi. Since she lived near the hospital, she rode along to make sure I was okay. We exchanged numbers when we parted ways. At first, she was the one reaching out, and our conversations were so lively and engaging that, before I knew it, I was the one dialing her number. Eventually, I asked her out. That first date was unforgettable. Lucy was incredible, bright, witty, well-read, and refreshingly genuine. Like me, she'd moved to the city from a small town, chasing a brighter future. To be honest, I wasn't initially drawn to her looks. She was plain in a way that didn't demand attention. Simple clothes, barely their makeup, no flashy jewelry. It stood out to me, especially since I dated plenty of women before who were all about appearances. But her simplicity was disarming, and somewhere along the way, I fell in love. It wasn't long before we got married. Our wedding, low-key, by choice. I could have afforded a big celebration, but Lucy insisted we save the money for a honeymoon instead. It was her first trip abroad, her first time seeing the ocean. We had the time of our lives. Afterward, she started taking an interest in fitness, initially to keep me company, but soon it became her own passion. I was thrilled, though I never pushed her in any direction. Everything just seemed to click. She took care of our home, focused on personal growth, and I was genuinely happy just being her husband. But things began to shift. As time went on, Lucy started focusing more on herself than on us, or the idea of having a family. She became a regular at fitness studios and beauty salons. I didn't mind at first. I mean, every month she seemed to look more stunning than before, and it was hard not to feel proud of that. The problem was, somewhere along the line, she stopped growing as a person. Our conversations, once filled with debates on literature, politics, and travel, dwindled into gossip about friends and acquaintances, who'd gotten what done, and how well off they were. I found myself longing for those deep, meaningful talks we used to have. Even our trips abroad became shallow. They were less about exploring and more about snapping Instagram-worthy shots. The excitement of discovering new places, gone. Lucy had transformed into a breathtaking woman, no doubt, but her interests had narrowed to beauty and money. It was unsettling, even sad, to watch someone who once had so much depth settle for surface-level pursuits. Over time, she seemed content to stay in this one-dimensional version of herself, and for me, that was the hardest part to accept. I found myself growing weary of the flawless image Lucy had crafted. Sure, she was stunning, but something essential had faded. Yet despite everything, I still loved her and clung to the hope that one day she'd realize life was about more than size 3 breasts and wrinkle-free skin. Then, out of the blue, she suggested I should start visiting salons too. I was floored. I've always taken care of myself, working out, eating right, steering clear of bad habits. But somehow, that wasn't enough for her. The criticisms started small, subtle even. My hairstyle was out of date, my chest hair needed trimming, my favorite jacket screamed last season. Each comment felt like a needle aimed at my self-esteem. And this was coming from the woman I had supported in every possible way, financially and emotionally. Then, one day, she dropped the bombshell. She was leaving me. According to her, I was unbearable, too focused on work, too withdrawn, too lacking. Oh, and apparently my income didn't measure up to her new standards. That part stunned me. It didn't take long to figure out who had stepped in to meet those standards. He was younger by about 5 years, with a wealthy, well-connected father backing him up. We didn't know each other personally, but mutual friends filled me in. Turned out their relationship had been brewing for 6 months. I can't say I was heartbroken, honestly. Her leaving just confirmed what I'd already suspected. The divorce was swift, and during our final meeting, she tried to take one last shot at humiliating me. Let's just say the conversation ended quickly. For 3 months, I didn't hear a peep from her. Then, out of nowhere, she called. She was sobbing, claiming she had nowhere to go because she'd been kicked out. She hurled insults at me, calling me stupid and vulgar, and suggested I crawl back to the small town I came from. Apparently, her new guy had discovered her true colors, or maybe just her roots. I couldn't help but chuckle. It seemed he wasn't as clueless as I'd thought. Still, I felt a pang of pity for her. After all, we weren't total strangers. So, I helped her out, covering the rent for her first month in a new place. Big mistake. Almost immediately, the calls started coming. Constant, insistent, and utterly draining. Eventually, I had to block her number and tell my workplace to deny her entry. I don't know how long her attempts to contact me continued, but eventually, she disappeared from my life entirely. From what I heard, she struggled to find decent work, and in the end, likely had no choice but to return to her hometown. It's a shame how things turned out, but at least now, I can finally breathe.